This week we're talking about if you gain permission, buy a farm, whatever, you have a new farm, what would you not do?
When I say that I think that this property could be the best access I have currently, I don't think that's an understatement. You're gonna get to see why by the time that this conversation is up, but 2025 shaping up to be a great year.
Welcome back to the show, guys. Today we've got another interesting topic. You know, last week we talked about do velvet pictures even matter. This week we're talking about if you gain permission, buy a farm, whatever, you have a new farm, what would you not do? You know, not so much what do you want to go do. I know we've covered that quite a bit, but this one's going to be what would you not do? And so I've got my top 4 things that I would not do going into a new farm, new property. So number 4 on that list is do not set your stands based on where you're seeing bucks right now. It seems like kind of an obvious one, but I know a lot of people, they start getting summer pictures of this big deer. They've got stands all over the place on this bean field. Then you get to October 1st, he's nowhere to be found. He's shifted into another green source or maybe cornfield, whatever it may be. But that's not to say that you don't, mentally take notes of all that information. Maybe he's going to come back to that area. Maybe there's a funnel right there that you want to set up on. So, definitely keep all that stuff in mind, but I wouldn't go rushing in there, setting all your stand sites up right now. Number 3 on the list is don't avoid planting food sources. So, one of my big go-tos, I love having food. I love watching deer. And that's what's going to keep them right there in your hub, so you got a better chance of connecting on them. Always talk about having upping your odds, having better chance at success. And food's going to do that for you. Now, you may have just destination food, or maybe you don't have good access to it, but it's a food source to hold them on the property. And maybe you can set up some little hidey hole kill plots. Based on that, you get them hitting those first, get them in daylight, and then they move off to destination ag. So I would only hunt the ones with great access, with regularity. The other ones I would hunt very sparingly. Not that you can't hunt them, but you're going to burn them out quick if you keep hunting them over and over. Number 2 on the list is don't make this more difficult than it is and overthink it. I mean, we can sit there dreaming and scheming about, okay, he's only going to quarter into the wind based on this, this, and this, or whatever your scenario might be. And I tell guys sometimes, there's no substitute for tree time. You get into the fall, be in a tree when the conditions are right. You could throw a lot of this stuff out the window that we want to think about and make it so difficult. But if you didn't do any of that and you just went and hunted when the conditions were right, I think you'd be farther ahead most of the time. Planning's great, and everything you can do now to prepare yourself for the fall is great, but sometimes I think we go too far that direction when we really just need to be hunting more. And then number 1 on the list is limit human intrusion. That's always going to be a big one. You got to realize different bucks have different personalities. Some may not care. You could bump them out of their bedding area every day or every other day and they may come back. Others are super sensitive, especially I see that as they get older. Sometimes they're real sensitive to human intrusion. You bump them once or twice and the neighbor don't have that going on. They just move, there goes a deer right there. They just move to a different property. They don't want to be disturbed. They're like your grandpa. They're old, senile. They don't want people messing with them. That's why they don't go to Chuck E. Cheese with all the people and whatnot. They don't want to be around all that nonsense. So limit your human intrusion, and also try to, whatever's common in the area, whether it's tractors, you know, sprayers, ATVs. Try to mimic that kind of activity, you know. So if there's a lot of ag in the area, like here, we drive tractors in here all the time, skid loader and stuff. They don't think anything of that. They're used to that all around this property, plus this property. So try to mimic whatever's natural in the area. They will think less of it than maybe an area that's all timber. It doesn't get any activity as far as vehicles, and you go marching in there with your quad or whatever, that might clear the whole property out. So keep that in mind as well. Now let's throw this over to Josh and see what his thoughts are about this very subject.
It's first season tomorrow here in Iowa, and so we're coming out to a new property to try to roost birds. I've never been here. Came out here one time with the buddy that I'm actually going to be deer hunting this with this fall. So that is really exciting. We'll save that story for another day.
Casey, the both of us, 2 of them.
We got them, man. We watched these 4 last night for an hour and a half. They roosted right off this back north plot. Called the hens in and the boys came right behind them. Just wanted to call and say thank you. Thank you so much. We're standing in 2025. It's April 20th, I believe. It's opening day of Iowa 4th season for turkey. And myself and Paul are here to do 2 things. Number 1, try to kill turkey. Number 2, where we're standing is a spot that I am extremely excited about for this incoming fall. We killed some turkeys here a few weeks back, and today my mission is pretty simple. Go through, pull all the high-res cards, and see just what is cooking here all fall. And before we start talking food plots, before we start talking anything, pull on the first card, got my laptop. We're gonna store every picture, save every picture, and then just kind of work backwards and see if this farm popped off different times of the year and kind of game plan from there. But to say for 2025, we've got a lot of excitement going into it. You know, we've got the river property that we call the Horseshoe Farm. We've got Big Bird with 6x5. I think I have pictures of him in March. We got a lot of bucks in theory. But this place, I think, really just gives us a consistent place to be in deer often. And first and foremost, I mean, I'm just so grateful to be hunting here for turkeys. I'm very grateful to get to walk this land for this, and I'm excited to hunt here in the fall. So 2025 should be a big one. We'll see how it goes. Well, hey there everyone. If you're still taking the time to join us here on this video, just want to say thank you very much for watching this week's episode. And really, I try to hit that every time that I'm on a video, but just your support, it makes the world of difference on our end of things. And whether that's here on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, one of the other streaming platforms our episodes run on, I just really want you guys to know we are thankful for it. We don't take the support for granted. And ultimately, we hope you're enjoying this video so far. Number 2, I want to say happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. I hope you had a wonderful Sunday and felt appreciated by your families. My dad's played a pivotal role in my entire life up to this point. He continues to do so every day. And ultimately, while we're all here, you know, he is the foundation of why I enjoy hunting the way that I do. And without him, the passion never would have even had a chance to take hold, and I wouldn't be getting to do what I'm doing today. So thank you, Dad. Really appreciate you. And what you saw there on the front end of this video, that is something I'm very excited to talk through today. And that is a new permission property that I've got access to. And it fits right into this theme of what not to do on a new hunting property. One thing that I definitely want to hit on before I get too far down this topic of discussion is that if you guys have ideas or you have the don'ts in your particular hunting situations that you feel like have worked for you, please, like last week on the velvet topic, do not hesitate to drop them in the comment section. It was really, really fun to watch and, watch different people engage in the comments that they had posted, but also just to read through all the different states and different thought processes. So I feel like this is another one of those topics that somebody might read that, it might apply to them, and don't discount your opinion. We just heard Owen cover 4 different points that I think hold a lot of value. Owen's got years of hunting experience from permission properties, public land, all the way to where he's at right now in land ownership. And all 4 of those are applicable no matter what your hunting scenario is. And so what I'm going to do is offer one more talking point to that list, and then ultimately just kind of give you some backstory on this property. tackle it as if I had no history on it, because I am in a unique situation right now where year number one, I can tell you I've never had more data points to go off of going into a property. But that being said, you know, first let's talk about my fifth point to this topic of discussion, and that's don't be afraid to ask questions. And what I mean by that, it's coming from a perspective of a predominantly permission hunting, past these last 10 years. But at the end of the day, I think I have left a lot of progress, a lot of knowledge, and frankly, just time on the table by being scared to ask questions, not wanting to be told no. Maybe it was a time where I just didn't, felt like I was in a position to ask the question. But, I'm going to give you a few examples, and then however it applies to what you've got going on, obviously, take it for what it is. But for me, I look at like the Big Bird property. I never really did ask the landowner in that particular scenario. So what do you see in the fall? What do you see during the rut? He lives on the property. He spends time out there all the time. And it was about a month and a half in, middle of October, even closer to November, that we finally got to the point where we had some rapport, and, I was asking questions, telling him what I was seeing, and I had asked him, so what do you see in the fall? What do you see during the rut? And he gave me every observation I had seen, not only from summer, not only in October, but he portrayed what he felt like he has seen living there for however many years. And it just kind of clicked for me that if I would have just asked him that question the first day I met him, I would have been, that many steps ahead, could have made different decisions that maybe would have yielded us a better opportunity at killing the drop tine buck that year, because we were always one step behind. And, I would go and talk to the landowner, like, oh yeah, no, I've seen him coming out there. And it's like, wow, yeah, you probably have. It was kind of silly of me not to ask. That moves into another form where it's like food plotting. I think that for me specifically, this is not every situation, but the places that I'm hunting, I'm always very hesitant, especially in year one of meeting somebody. I don't ask to do food plots. I don't ask to do really big transformation, projects, unless I feel like there's a relationship there. Ultimately, that's just something that once you ask one time, if you get told no, I don't really think there's a likelihood that you're gonna someday be able to offer more to that, situation. Take 2025, for example. I look at the Big Bird property. I finally got the opportunity to put in food plots, whereas on the river property, I was ultimately told no, and that is totally fine. But it just allows me to know that I asked at least. And I think ultimately you could really just attribute to this the beginning of any permission property. It's that if you don't ask to hunt, you never get the opportunity to. So don't waste time by being afraid of the answer. Obviously you can do those things in a tactful way, but at the end of the day, whether it's asking for information from the landowners, maybe it's the lease person that you're involved with, maybe it's a prior hunter or your neighbor, there's no question not worth asking, because once you get the answer, it'll at least give you a step forward on how to proceed. Now, taking that all and applying it to this property that you just saw on the front end, when I say that I think that this property in theory could be the best access I have currently, I don't think that's an understatement. You're gonna get to see why by the time that this conversation is up, but I would like to go back to the very beginning of how I got permission, and that's going to be saying thank you very much to my friend Casey and the landowner. Those two individuals are the only reason I'm standing here talking about it, introducing it, and dreaming about all the things that could occur this fall. And so add that to the list of the don'ts. Don't forget to thank whoever is allowing you the opportunity to hunt there. If you own your own ground, congratulations, but when you're in the permission or even in the lease standpoint, there's somebody that helped you land the opportunity to hunt that. So, just want to say a big thank you to those two. And, sticking on topic with this discussion, what not to do when you get a new property. I am in a unique position where I have a lot of information about this piece, but beginning as if I didn't have it, that's how I'm going to introduce it. So it's 140 acres. It's got a really sizable alfalfa plot that's 14, I think it's roughly 14 acres once I outlined it with Onyx. And I can see there's ponds, and I can see there's a lot of hardwoods. It's got diversity. The neighborhood's really nice from the standpoint of cover. You can tell that there's a lot of deer hunting occurring in this property's proximity. And so ultimately, following Owen's topics of discussion, let's say it's June, I just got it. And so I'm kind of really pairing point 4 and point 1, which was the intrusion and the summer information. I understand that this time of the year, it's a lot harder to find maybe the most abundant sign or the most obvious sign, but going out there right now, If I spend one day, I'm going to be able to go find trails. I'm going to be able to confirm water sources. I'm going to be able to identify different tree species. Maybe they're different pinch points, man-made or natural. And I would use this property as an example where, there's a couple of things that jump out to me right away. There is the opening that clearly was a historic food plot of some sort. It's not been planted by my friend, but at some point it was something that was dedicated to food. There is 2 different ponds, and then there's the alfalfa. And what I can tell is that there's a lot of movement from north to south and east to west throughout this property. Just even looking at the map, you can see historical trails. Once I then put it into 3D mode, I can start to see there's pretty decent terrain once you get into the woods. And so knowing all this, I am going to, in theory, be intrusive at least one day. I'm gonna go in and I'm going to have Onyx just going. I'm gonna have Path Tracker on anytime I hit a new trail. And what I'm going to do is I would go and walk any trail that's being used right now and then try to see how much historical sign is along it. I mean, how many times have you walked the trail at this time of the year in the woods or even in a field and the tree had rubs going one way and then you turned around and there was rubs going the other way? Maybe you came across scrapes, maybe you came across beds, whatever they are. I'm marking all those pins on every trail that I'm walking. Maybe I came across a fence crossing. Maybe I came across a very noticeable creek crossing. I'm making points. It's June, but I'm making data points on this map as I go this one day so that when I get to the end of the day and I'm back at home, I'm looking at Onyx and I've got this now picture painted. Typically what I try to do is color coordinate my pins, where if I think that sign is from the summer, I'll put one color. And then if it's historical, I'll put it another. And so then I start to see how much overlap there is. And that really starts to paint a picture for me as just a starting point. And, from there, I would take a look at that opening and go, I like this spot for food. It is a very, attention grabbing location that's going to give me good pinch points throughout the food, and it would lead out into the alfalfa. And eventually this alfalfa is probably not going to be the best food source. So if I can add some additional green into that spot where it's going to give me palatable green into the fall, I think that already this is a great change. So, from there, I'm going to put cameras out in the summer. I'm going to try to get an intel on what bucks are in the area. And then realistically, my strategy, even if I put that food in, would be to start wide from a hunting perspective and make my way in. With all the scouting I just did, with all the pins and that original walk, that's where I'm gonna put trail cameras come, August or whatever time frame. Heck, I'll put them out right now because I don't really, worry about cell cam plan or batteries. I pay for a Cuddy Link and it's $360 a year, and I can do up to 24 cameras. So every camera I add to that, my cost per camera per month goes down. And the sunshade solar panels, I can put those in the woods. It's valuable information from June to August, and I'm gonna have them in the locations already so that when I feel like I'm gonna be getting more, important data, that is already taken care of. Now, once I get to fall, let's say September, velvet starts to, strip, I'm obviously gonna move my cameras to go to fall locations, scrapes. If I feel like the trails that I had the, cameras on are still active, I will leave them. But, just following Owen's what not to do's, you really start to make the list of how to approach hunting a new property. So, that being said, I'm going to paint now the picture of where I'm actually at. And it's in a very unique spot from the standpoint that I have a lot of data points. As I mentioned, this is a good buddy of mine who has hunted here a couple of years. Last August, went out and put out a Cuddy Link system that he had bought. And he just wanted help with the system, putting out some cameras. And we just wanted to have ultimately a day together out in the property. I don't get to see him very much. It's one thing to note here. Casey is he's a selfless person. I mean, he just serves everybody around him. He was a Green Beret, and there's no individual that deserves our respect more than him. And, hunting time is something that's hard for him to find because he is so involved with so many different things. He owns or helps in multiple veteran businesses. He's involved in a lot of different nonprofits. He's got, his kids that he's always, attending to their sporting events. And so, after putting out the cameras in August, that fast forwards to this spring and us just talking and saying, how was hunting season? And, what's plans this year? And all of a sudden he said, what do you think about hunting the property with me? And I was obviously very excited about it. I couldn't, honestly, I was kind of shocked And after our initial discussion of making sure that we were on the same page about expectations and how much time I could spend out there, etc., I felt really good about this opportunity. And that led into a turkey season, was able to shoot 2 turkeys there with Joy in the spot that I'm actually thinking about putting in a plot. And it was somewhere in April that I was like, so where do you think made it through? What bucks are out there? What did you observe? And then we just realized that the cameras had been out all, summer, all fall, all winter, all the way into the spring. And I realized, I'm like, I can go get a really comprehensive look at this place as if I hunted it by pulling all those cameras, looking through every single photo, making notes. This is where, I don't know how much it really helps. I feel like it helps me, but I go through, make notes on daylight photos. All of a sudden I'm gonna start to look at what winds were those daylight photos on. Because any patterns that I can identify that are gonna help me make good hunting decisions coming into the 2025 fall, I'm gonna take it. I mean, at the end of the day, I would expect that what I saw last fall is gonna be very similar to what we'll see this fall. There's not a huge crop rotation factor to this property. I mean, the alfalfa is the biggest food source, and there's really not as much ag as I would expect there to be, especially compared to some of my other properties. And so I got a really good holistic picture here is what I'm trying to say by pulling all those cameras. Now, I'm not gonna dive into every camera and every spot. I'll do that stuff on the chase when we really dive into the property, but that then allowed me, to take care of point number 2 that Owen talked about, which is you can't, outwork hunting time. Well, that's the closest thing I have to tree stand time is those however many cameras that ran all season long because of the solar panels. And the data that it provided is absolutely invaluable because I feel like going into right now, I'm on year 2 of the property. I've seen how the deer move through it naturally. I now have already gone through, and that's kind of what you saw on the front end. My buddy Luke was super kind and brought over a skid steer. We went and mowed out that plot's outline. We picked out a tree. We're gonna move the redneck blind that my buddy Casey had, and we're just gonna set this spot up so that it's good for bow hunting. It'll be good for youth hunting if him and his son choose to go out there. We went and reestablished some trail systems that are actually in the woods that were old logging roads and connected them from an access standpoint. Picked out another tree that's over a fence crossing that I think is gonna be an excellent spot. And my point is that I am making all of these changes that, frankly, if it was me on a permission piece, I don't think I would never have even considered doing all the things that we are right now. So I'm really excited. There's a lot of great bucks out there, and there's bucks that I would expect. I don't know if every single one of them made it, but I would expect some of them did. And I just cannot express how thankful I am to have another property to hunt. Can't do it without great landowners, can't do it without great friends. And 2025 shaping up to be a great year. As always, we would love to hear your guys' feedback on what the do's and don'ts are for you and your hunting scenarios. And with that, again, start paying attention to the Chase series. We have a lot of awesome videos that are gonna be coming down the pipe from the team as we start to get into deer projects. Chasing November is still underway. Gavin's working tirelessly at that. Very excited to bring it your way. And then finally, if you're at this point, I should have said this on the beginning, we got some new merch items, so if you want to check those out too, we really appreciate it. But hope you guys enjoyed the episode. It's a fun topic of discussion, and we are just inching day by day closer to the best time of the year. Hope you guys are getting as excited as we are. Thanks again for watching Midwest Whitetail.